I always believed I understood my life. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to think nothing could surprise me anymore. When you live long enough, you think you've already seen every possible mistake, every possible shock, every possible twist life could prepare for you. I was wrong. For 82 years, my name had belonged only to me. Every bill I paid, every document I signed, every account I owned, I remembered them. Maybe not instantly, maybe not perfectly, but I remembered. My life was quiet, predictable, ordinary in the safest possible way, and I liked it that way. When you get old, you stop expecting new stories. You think the important chapters are already behind you, that whatever is left will be small, quiet, safe. That morning began like every other morning. Same chair, same table, same cup of coffee cooling slowly beside my hand. Outside, the street was still. Inside, the house was silent. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. Nothing warned me. If I had known what that day would bring, I would have stayed in bed. The envelope was lying there between the rest of the mail. Ordinary, plain, almost invisible. The kind of letter you don't notice unless you're looking directly at it. At first I thought it was nothing. Banks send letters constantly. Statements, updates, notifications. Most of them mean absolutely nothing. Paper has a habit of pretending to be important. But something didn't feel right. Not wrong, just off. It wasn't the envelope. It wasn't the stamp. It wasn't even the handwriting. It was the feeling. The quiet kind that arrives before your mind understands why it's there. Then I saw my name printed across the front. Perfectly printed. Perfectly correct. That's when I knew this letter wasn't lost. It was meant for me. So I opened it, slowly, carefully. The way you open something you already suspect might change your day. Inside was a bank statement. Clean paper, official formatting, ordinary numbers. Except for one thing. It wasn't from my bank. I stared at the logo for a long time, trying to convince myself I simply didn't recognize it. Maybe the design had changed. Maybe it was new. Maybe I was forgetting something. But the numbers were clear. Deposits, withdrawals, balance. And the account holder name at the top was mine. I had never seen that account before. Not once. Not ever. And that was the moment I realized something in my life existed without me knowing it. I didn't move for a long time after she said it. The words stayed in the air like something physical, like they had weight, like they had shape. Active. That single word didn't sound threatening, didn't sound dramatic, didn't sound dangerous. And yet I could feel it settling somewhere deep inside me, the way a truth settles when your mind realizes it arrived before your understanding did. I asked her to repeat it, hoping I had heard wrong, hoping maybe the line had cracked, maybe her voice had broken, maybe my ears had decided to betray me at the exact wrong moment. But she repeated it exactly the same way, with the same calm tone, the same professional rhythm, the same absence of surprise. My mouth went dry. Not fear, not panic, just that strange feeling that appears when reality quietly steps out of place and stands somewhere it shouldn't be. I realized she wasn't confused. She wasn't mistaken. She wasn't guessing. She was reading. So I asked her the question that mattered. I asked when the account had been opened. There was a pause, not a long one, just long enough to make me aware of my own heartbeat. When she answered, the number didn't make sense. Not at first. It sounded too recent, too close, too near to the present. My mind tried to rearrange the date into something older, something distant, something easier to explain. But numbers don't rearrange themselves for comfort. That's not possible. I told her there had to be a mistake, that I never opened any account with their bank, that I would remember something like that, something official, something legal, something real. She didn't argue. She didn't doubt me. She didn't question me. She simply said she understood. And then she said something that made my stomach drop before my mind even processed the words. She said the account had been opened in person. That meant someone had stood there. Someone had signed papers. Someone had shown identification. Someone had used my name while looking another human being directly in the eye. I never went there. And that was the moment the question finally appeared. Not how, not when, not why. Who? I didn't ask her who opened it, not yet, because deep down I already understood something important. If I asked too soon, I might hear a name I wasn't ready to hear. Some answers don't shock you because they're surprising. They shock you because they confirm what you were already afraid of. So instead, I asked her something safer. I asked if the person who opened the account had provided identification. She said yes, calmly, immediately, like she had answered that same question 1,000 times before. My chest tightened, because that meant this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a system error. This wasn't paperwork confusion. This was someone prepared, someone organized, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. That means they planned it. I asked her one more question. My voice sounded steady, but my hand wasn't. I asked if the bank kept copies of the opening documents. Another pause. Another sound of keys somewhere far away on her desk. Then she said yes. And that's when everything changed. Because documents mean proof. Proof means records. Records mean names. I told her I wanted to know who signed them. There was a silence on the line again, but this silence wasn't empty like the last one. This one felt careful, measured, like she was choosing what to say next. Then she spoke, slowly, clearly, carefully. She said the person who opened the account listed themselves as my son. I don't have a son. And for the first time since the call began, I felt real fear. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have questions, because I suddenly had too many. My mind wasn't searching anymore. It was racing. If someone claimed to be my son, then they didn't just use my name. They used my life. I asked her what name was written on the documents, not the relationship, the actual name, the one printed in ink. She hesitated this time, and that hesitation told me more than her words could. It told me she was looking at it, reading it, seeing it clearly. Then she read the name out loud, slowly, carefully, like she didn't want to mispronounce it. I knew it, because I had heard that name before. Not once, not twice, many times. It didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone who had stood inside my house, someone who had sat at my table, someone who had seen my mail, Someone who knew where I kept my documents without ever asking. And suddenly, the past didn't feel distant anymore. It felt organized, like pieces had been placed long ago, waiting for this exact moment to make sense. So I asked her one final thing. I asked if the bank had a copy of the signature, because if I saw it, I'd know. She didn't refuse. She didn't question me. She just said she could send a copy if I confirmed my address. That calmness again. That same steady tone, like she was reading instructions, not changing someone's life. I gave it to her, slowly, carefully, like each word had weight. Because now this wasn't curiosity anymore. This was evidence. She told me it would arrive within minutes. Minutes. Such a small word for something that suddenly felt enormous. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there without moving. I didn't want it to arrive, because as long as it wasn't there, I could still pretend. Pretend I was wrong. Pretend this was a mistake. Pretend reality hadn't shifted. Then I heard it. A message. One attachment. My finger didn't move at first. I just looked at it. Because I already knew that whatever was inside that file wasn't going to lie. Finally, I opened it. The file loaded slowly, line by line. First, the logo, then the form, then the printed text, and then I saw it. The signature. I know that handwriting because I had seen it before. Not once, not twice, many times. On birthday cards, on notes, on envelopes left on my table. It didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone I trusted. I knew who it was. When I looked at the signature, I didn't feel shock, because the moment I recognized the handwriting, the truth stopped being a mystery and became a memory that led me straight to one person I had trusted for years without a single doubt. It was my nephew, the same young man who once lived in my house, sat at my table, carried my mail inside, and offered to help me organize my paperwork when my eyes started failing, and I was too grateful to question kindness. He hadn't acted suddenly or desperately. He had prepared it slowly, patiently, learning my details like lines of a script, until one day he simply walked into a bank and used my name as if it belonged to him. And the reason I never noticed was almost cruel in its simplicity, because he never stole from me, never touched my accounts, never gave me a reason to suspect anything was wrong. He used the account only for himself, moving his money, hiding his transactions, living the second life on paper, while I lived mine in peace, unaware that somewhere in the system, another version of me already existed. By the time I finished reading, I understood everything, and the fear I had felt before was gone. Because uncertainty is louder than truth, and now there was no uncertainty left. I wasn't robbed by a stranger. I was robbed by someone who knew my door was never locked.